Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
The podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are stepping into the Marvel multiverse. We're dipping our toe into different multiverses. And the one we're stepping into is called Marvel 1602. It is a comic from 2004 by Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert on the art. And yeah, I mean, this is one of the biggest things that Neil Gaiman ever wrote for Marvel. I can't think of anything else he ever wrote for Marvel that was this big. I can't even think of other stuff he's written for Marvel now that I'm talking about it. I'm blanking, but I know he's got to do at least a couple things. But for sure, this is his big thing in the mid 2000s, early 2000s, and basically what it is it's the premise was all your favorite Marvel characters existing in the year 1602. So it's kind of oh, what's going on here? That's an interesting take. What could it be? But yeah, we should just start off in the story. We'll jump into the story. So, well, first off, John, we already recorded this once 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
it was supposed to be episode 5 or whatever the podcast. The file got corrupted, and we just were well, we don't want to record it too soon after, so we just
we went to. Gotta feel real. It's gotta be live.
Yeah, we're
doing it live.
Yeah, we wanted these thoughts to be real and whatever. And I'm kind of glad we did, because since then we have read many, many more comics, and I have a better appreciation or / understanding of the Marvel universe.
When we started this podcast, Matt was like, "Oh, I like Marvel."
That's not true. I was I like Wolverine.
Yeah, and now you're I kind of like some Marvel comics.
I like Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale Marvel comics, and I like Wolverine / X-Men comics a lot.
Yeah,
generally,
those are definitely some of the best ones.
And I like Spider-Man, Kraven's Last Hunt.
You like the Sinister Six? You said that was good.
Yes, there was parts of that were good. Yeah,
he's coming on to it. He likes.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I just love DC.
He likes the Marvel comics that don't spoon feed you and have to remind you every issue. Hey, guess what? Remember what happened last time?
I enjoyed Infinity Gauntlet because that doesn't feed you anything. That was just here, we're dropping you in the middle of this epic fucking crazy storyline with Thanos. So that was interesting. And that was a DC Marvel book, which was crazy and weird. So, but yeah, so before that, had you ever read this book?
I feel like I did. I feel like this is when I'm going to give when Matt worked at the comic book shop stories.
I'm a nerd.
This is one that he told me to check out, and I was like, okay, that sounds like a freaking cool premise. And yeah, I remember reading it and being oh, that was really cool. Yeah, it was. I remember it being fun, but then kind of out of sight, out of mind, and then I didn't read comics again for years until we started picking this back up.
Yeah.
So it was nice to revisit it. There were some things I didn't remember. There were some things I did remember, and it still felt fresh. And it's still a really good story.
Weird. It's weird because this is such a dense comic because Neil Gaiman wrote it. So he knows how to write comics, and he also writes novels. So he knows the fine line of putting too much shit into the word bubbles and everything, or telling kind of like the older comics, when we read X Factor or those kind of things with Archangel, where it just takes you a while to get through the comic, which I actually appreciate, because when you pay fucking $3.99 or $5.99 or whatever for a comic book issue, you don't want to finish it in 5 minutes. I want a good story that takes me a hot second to get through, that's got really good art. That's what I appreciate. And this was that. This, every issue, I was all right, are we still on issue 1? I thought maybe at first when I started reading this, that because some volumes do this, they take the covers out, and so you don't know when the issues stop, and go to the next issue. Yeah. So I was are they doing that? And then the next page turn, I was oh, there's issue 2. So it was every issue I was oh, this issue's pretty fat, But I think you got full 24-page stories in here that were crammed full of information, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, they're just well thought out.
Yes, well thought out, plotted plot lines and everything that are going on. So yeah, and also I would say that this is actually the first Neil Gaiman comic I ever read. I read his book American Gods first. That's how I knew him. And then my brother was like, "Oh, you should read his comics." I'm like, "Oh, he did a comic?" And it was right after this came out. And my brother actually got me a signed edition of this hardcover. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, cool. I have like a signed Neil Gaiman copy of this." And so, yeah, that's the first time I read it was that. And I remember being like, "Oh, this is weird." And at the time, I didn't know anything about Marvel, pretty much. I knew like the animated stuff, like the TV shows. So more than that, this was kind of like, oh, I guess that's supposed to be Peter Parker. Like, like who's this Nick Fury guy? I don't know. So like, yeah, once I got more into comics and stuff, I was like, oh, I get this now, and this fits better. But now after we've been reading comics for 2 years doing this podcast, I'm like, oh, I totally feel like I understand everything and get all the little Easter eggs and stuff that they mention. So yeah, let's jump into the storyline. Basically, we start off in England in 1602. A lot of this takes place in England, of course, because that's what was going on, I guess, in the western part of the world. England was kicking ass and taking names and doing their thing.
Taking a lot of land.
Taking a lot of land. Well, along with, all these other, because there's like Spain and Portugal and all those companies. Well, some of them were companies. Some of them were companies. The, what is it? East India Trading Company. Yeah. So, there's a lot of stuff going on in England, but basically we find out that we start off with the Queen of England, who is one of the Elizabeths. I don't know. Which one is it? It's not important.
Queen Elizabeth, yeah.
One of the Elizabeths. And she is old and coughing and stuff. She's definitely sick, and you can tell she's about to die sometime in the near future, probably. But her head of security or slash, I guess, plots and plotness or something. I don't know. The way he says it is basically they're espionage.
Yeah.
Like it's spy versus spy. That's her guy in the background is Nick Fury. And I like that they say, like, there's a line where he's like, "I am your shield. I am the shield of England," or whatever.
Of those little, yeah.
So they like mention that he's the head of Shield, but it's not Shield as we know it. It's just like the idea of a shield, And so he's like the head of the security basically for the Queen, and him and Doctor Strange, who is of course a mystic but also the doctor of the Queen, they are talking to her about these storms that have been happening, and everybody's saying like Armageddon is happening because these random storms, like firestorms in the middle of Germany and thunder and lightning storms, earthquakes, things that never happened before.
Yeah.
Or might as well be raining frogs or whatever, because like they're freaking out and everybody's saying like it's the end of the world, and they're not sure what to do. But I like at first that you find out that Stephen Strange and Nick Fury do not get along. That's like a fun back and forth with them in this comic. Is I don't know why. Like I don't think they had a rivalry in the comics necessarily. But,
no, I just don't think they try. Well, because like he's
Well, it's very much like Nick Fury is in the physical world and Doctor Strange is in the mystical world. So like, and Fury's like, I don't believe any of that shit. And he's like, well, you should, because I'm gonna phantom out of here in a second. Like, and so yeah, like they're always fighting about what's going on and like what how to approach certain things that are mystical or like Fury does not believe things, and he's like, well, how did that happen?
Yeah,
it's some kind of trick conjurer, like.
Yeah, Fury's like, we're gonna figure this out, and I'm gonna send a spy in to do this, or I'm gonna like very much like we're gonna secretly do it, and Steven is like, well, I can just like look into this mirror and like we'll
divine what's gonna happen,
we'll figure it out. And it's like that's not how that works.
Yeah, I think you're lying. You must have some kind of trick up your sleeve, basically. Yeah. And then we cut to like, so there's three bad things going on in this comic. There's the storms, and then there's the Inquisition that's going on in Spain. And in Spain, they have they're persecuting mutants. So anybody they're like seeing as a mutant, specifically the first one we see is Angel. Angel is tied up because he can't hide his wings like other people can hide their powers and pass as normal. He has giant wings that they see, and they're like, you're some kind of fake angel. You're a demon, basically, or you're like a demon spawn. And so they're about to purge him, and there's an Inquisitor who is specifically the one like after these mutants with outwardly showing signs.
Yeah.
He's got a beard. He looks all mean and shit. But then we see he's got a sister that works for him.
Right,
he calls her sister.
Yeah.
Sister
she's
Wanda.
a nun.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, I said sister, but I meant like a nun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like he's got his son that helps him out as well. That is like the messenger. He's like the courier for like between parties.
And it's like Pietro, and it's Pietro, obviously.
Pietro.
It was spelled weird.
So all of the names in this are spelled weird because they're like old timey. Yeah, Stephen Strange, but his is different because they spell it with a PH.
That's true,
and it's not like that in the Marvel universe. So, there's things like Peter Parker is Peter Parquois.
Yeah,
and then like stuff like that. Like they will be close enough to it, but you get who it's supposed to be. So we know about the Inquisition, and then we also find out that someone has been trying to kill people, assassinate people in England, and that is from Otto von Doom, and he is kind of in Latveria, and he is known for his beauty. So this is before he's...
Yeah, I did like that. Like, so he has like, his outfit is very similar looking, except he doesn't have
have the mask.
A mask, and that's because he's like a kind of like a... He looks kind of... It makes me think of like Gaston from Disney.
Yes.
Very
very
strong
true.
Chin.
Very true. Yeah.
Long locks and stuff.
Yeah. Beautiful locks. So when Nick Fury is trying to figure out what's going on with... Like, he's got spies everywhere, basically. And in order to fight these storms, he has heard about a thing that, like what is it? Like a holy grail kind of object. Something from the Templars of, like, the Crusades times.
Yeah.
He hears about a weapon that they've had and is being held by someone, and they're transporting it up, and he's trying to, like, make sure it gets there on time, and they meet this guy transporting. It's like an old man that's transporting this weapon. No one knows what it is, but it's supposedly something from the olden days of like Christianity and the Knights Templar. So he sends his man, who's like the undercover guy in town or whatever, who I guess is a good profession for him to have. He's a bard, but it's obviously Daredevil who it's supposed to be. We don't ever hear his name.
Yeah, Matthew.
Oh, we say it's Matthew, but then we don't hear Murdoch.
I don't think
right?
we ever hear Murdoch. Yeah.
So, but we know, okay, that's Matthew, and
he's got he's mainly wearing red, and he's
blind.
He's got a red like patch or not patch
cloth over his face. His eyes. And he's a bard that people, he goes around being like, I'm drunk and singing badly, and I'm a bard, and they're like, get out of here. But I'm assuming that's how he gets a lot of information for Nick Fury. Is he's going around bars and taverns and asking questions and acting stupid, but only to get information, kind of thing. So Nick Fury comes up with a plot he's like, you're my guy. I need you to go meet this old man who's got this weapon and secure it for us. And it's like the fate of the world and also the kingdom is in your hands. And there's a lot of, I like that there's a lot of like, because this is how it would be back then, like ultimate fealty to the crown or whatever. Like, oh, the queen's dead? Well, we're gonna, whoever the new guy is, that's our guy now. It's like, well, you don't care that he's evil? No, God gave him the crown. He wouldn't have it otherwise, right? It's like there's like a understood thing in all the people, even Nick Fury and everybody are like that. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so he sends Daredevil off on this mission to collect this weapon of power. Now, in the meantime, Stephen Strange, he's doing his own like divinations and stuff. He is getting visions of, people coming from the New World, being America. There's a girl with super white hair, and what's her name? Virginia Dare.
Yeah.
Right? So her name is Virginia Dare. Apparently, she was a real person in history.
Yeah, she was I remember this because the last time I think we read it, I had done some stuff on like early colonies, and so yeah, she was the first child born in the New World,
from England.
From England, and
in the Roanoke colony.
yeah. And part of this story is taken from that, except that it was her grandfather went back to England to try to secure like more funding for them to have be able to buy and build and trade and whatnot. And then he came back like 3 years later, and the whole colony was gone. No trace of anybody there.
Yeah, and they died out.
Yeah, they died out. Nobody knows what happened. There's still
we know what happened. They died. We just don't know
where the
how
bodies.
Or why. Well, obviously the sharks ate them, John.
The land sharks.
The land sharks. There was dinosaurs in this book, man. They showed like dinosaurs in the New World at one point in this.
I missed the dinosaurs.
They were like the leather wings, and there's like a fucking pterodactyl and shit. So
okay,
I'm like, okay, there's dinosaurs. Apparently, maybe they got. That's how they got eaten. I don't know. But either way, it's her sailing, and he sees a vision of her, like his ghostly body, his astral body flies over the ship that she's on, and she's with a Native American man who looks a little bit odd. He stands out because he's got blonde hair, and his name is Rogers. You might. I don't know. I was trying to figure out, like, would this fool people? Like, did this fool people? Or would they have guessed the twist of this? I don't know. I guess we could spoil it now. Who gives a fuck? But
really?
Yeah, we could spoil this part because it's close. I mean, his name's Rogers.
Okay.
Who in the Marvel universe is named Rogers?
Well, see, I think if that depends how you read, because maybe
I guess if you don't know how it's read.
I was like Rahas.
Rahas. Okay. Well, then we'll pretend you're dumb like John and don't know how to pronounce it.
Take us along. It is a very buff, very white looking
blonde-haired
Native American.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Some might say he's a Captain of American. But anyway, so yeah, Stephen Strange, astral body projects and sees that, and then he also sees what's going on with Angel and the Inquisition, and that Angel's about to be burned, and that basically they're just about to burn him alive. And the Inquisitor is telling his son, who's Piotr or whatever, to go to Scotland, because at this time in history, England and Scotland were at war. So it's James of the Scots, King of Scotland or whatever, is the guy up there. And he's telling him, like, hey, we'll tell him, hey, when you're king, we'll work with you, and we'll get rid of the queen for you if you like help us out when you're king. Yeah. So they're plotting against the queen as well. Which makes sense because, I don't know. It seems like everybody would be plotting against every king and queen and monarch and everything back then. So
it's all Game of Thrones.
It is all Game of Thrones. And then after Nick Fury walks or gets Matthew Murdock to go on his quest for the item of magical importance or whatever, the weapon from the Templars, he's walking with his... I don't think we said, but Peter Parker is his like ward or whatever. It's like his assistant, basically. His trainee.
He's like, learn from me, watch me, do what I tell you to do, and maybe someday, you'll be
a Nick Fury just like me.
Yeah.
and so as they're walking, Nick Fury gets attacked by a man who kind of looks like the Vulture.
Yeah.
Which is a common. There's a couple people that are assassins. They all look like vultures, and they specifically say these Vulture men, blah blah blah. So it's like the person setting these assassins are like, I don't know, making men that look like the Vulture, the bad guy from Spider-Man. But he tries to stab Nick Fury, and Nick Fury is wearing a coat of mail that bends the knife. I was like, oh man, he should have said like it's an adamantium. It's this new stuff that I found called adamantium or whatever, because that knife, it looks like it's made of fucking tin. Like
it does. It crumples.
It crumples like he made it with like a fake movie knife or some shit that he made it out of. So yeah, and then they end up taking the guy hostage, or not? I guess whatever. They imprison him, and then they're gonna torture him. And I like when he's talking to the queen. He's like, "We captured someone who tried to kill me." He's like, "I would love to torture him, but we can't do that. That'd be bad." And the queen's like, "Yeah, we're not allowed. You're not allowed to torture people, but do what you have to, if you whatever you feel like you need to do." Wink, wink. And he's like, "Will do."
All right.
Like you get a smile on his face, like, yeah, I'm gonna torture you. Like fucking Nick Fury, right? It was so then we cut to the next day when Angel is about to be burned at the stake, and out of nowhere, as they're lighting the pyre underneath him, he's like, I'm gonna fucking burn. Like he's thinking he's dead. Two two monks, people who look like monks, come out of nowhere and they start fighting the people in the square that are trying to light them on fire. But the first thing that happens is the guy leans down with the torch and puts it on the wood, and then all of a sudden the wood goes cold, and they're like, what? Like, why'd the fire go out? You know, and all of a sudden we see a wall of ice appear. So basically, it's Cyclops and Iceman. They appear, and they have like their 1602 gear, right? So Cyclops doesn't have sunglasses; he's got like a ruby visor. We'll say it kind of looks like
it looks like it'd be made out of stone.
Yeah, like ruby, or like some kind. Well, like maybe not ruby because that would be expensive, but like some kind of quartz or whatever, red quartz or something that would make it so he can, so it holds back his eyes, his beams or whatever, so he doesn't hurt people or whatever. But so they like free Angel, and Angel's able to escape, and they get him out of there. Then we cut to the old man who was with the Knights Templar people or whatever. He is, I don't know if he's actually a Knights Templar or if he's just the guy doing this. He seemed like he was very religious and very pious and everything before this. So I figure he might be like the last guardian. He's like the dude at the end of Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail. Is that what it's called? So, he's that guy who like tries to lift up his sword. He's like, I can't move. And so,
choose.
Yeah. You've chosen poorly. But we see that Nick Fury has done a good bit of scheming in his plan to get this thing to England. He has the old man in a cart that just looks like a regular traveler's cart, nothing special about it. And then he's got like guarded carts coming out and some other carts. Like he's got multiple bogies. Like he's got, what are they called?
He's got decoys.
Decoys, that's the word I was thinking of. He's got decoys for this special weapon so that no one, thinks the old man is the main guy. And so he can get to where he needs to get to meet Matthew Murdock. And also we should say Matthew Murdock meets up with a woman who we find out is Natasha, who's Black Widow basically in the Marvel comics. And they're like both working with Nick Fury, and they're together on this journey, and they know each other. They've at least met each other a couple times in the espionage game potentially. And so then we cut to the ship that the X-Men are riding on with Angel now, and we get introduced to the X-Men of this era. We see it's basically the original X-Men team. We got John Gray instead of Jean Grey. We have Cyclops, who's
Scott Summer. It's like Summarize.
Summarius? I don't know.
Summarius?
Scottius Summarus. That's what he's like. I don't know, Greek or some shit. and then basically we get all the we got Iceman, you got Beast, and it's Beast before he got Harry, basically, and then of course Professor X, who is named Javier. Carlos Javier. And so instead of Charlos Xavier. Yeah. Charlos. Instead of Charles Xavier. So we're just going to call them by their actual Marvel names because I'm not going to be keeping track of their names,
it's silly. And it's fun. I get it for the time, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like, especially as you're reading, you're like, oh, that's who that is. And then you move on with it anyway.
Yeah. Then in your head, it's just, that's Jean Grey or that's, whatever. So the second issue starts with Nick Fury going to meet the X-Men at the school of gifted children or whatever.
The school for the sons of like Gentiles and
gentlemen or whatever. Yeah, the gentlemanly scholars or some shit. That's what he calls it. But yeah, basically it's the first time I think he sees the school because he gets shown like what they can do as a team or whatever. And
I like the look of their outfits in this. Their color-coded outfits.
Yeah, it kind of, it looks very reminiscent of the original X-Men outfits, but like, a little bit more baggy clothes, we'll say. It's not so form-fitting. And then we also see Virginia Dare and Rajas. They have arrived in England, and they are to meet with the Queen because she's going there to ask for funds for the colony because they're starving or whatever. And when she gets there, because she's like the firstborn English citizen in America, they're gonna let her meet the Queen and stuff. So that's kind of like why they're letting her there. And Rogers is very protective. Anybody who comes near Virginia, he's like, you stay away. He's got a very like stereotypical accent for a Native American.
Yeah.
So he's like, you stay, or he's very monosyllable.
Yeah,
words
very short with his sentences.
Yeah, very taciturn. There's a good word for you.
That's very good.
Yeah. One thing that was funny is Natasha, when her and Matthew are riding in their carriage to go meet this old man. You got to think, you're riding in a carriage for a month or whatever. Like you're traveling over land. This is a long time. And so she asked Matthew, how did you become Daredevil? And I thought this was fucking ridiculous. He's like, well, I used to be a Daredevil when I was a kid. Like, well, she doesn't ask how you became a Daredevil. She asks how you became blind. And he's like, oh, that's a story. I was like, one of those little kids who wasn't scared of nothing. I was basically a Daredevil. And I went into this cave. And there was this weird green shit leaking down the wall. And I tasted it. Oh, what the fuck is wrong with this kid?
Nobody told you back then, don't try the green
Yes,
stuff.
they did. Even more so. They're like, don't fucking eat shit that you don't know is food. Even more so back then.
That's true.
They're not good. Yeah, like, what? So, yeah, he just sees like this neon green substance and he eats it. He doesn't rub it in his eyes, though. But somehow, that makes him blind. Yep, what if it just took away his sense of taste? And that was the... He'll eat anything. That's the Daredevil in him. Because he doesn't taste it. It just gave him heightened other senses, though, still, because, it took one away. So
a man without food fear.
Yeah, a man without taste. But yeah, so that I thought that was just ridiculous. Kind of like one of the few like. There's a couple things in this, and I'm like, all right, I'll roll with it. But that's kind of stupid or whatever. But like, it's more fun than whatever. And then we finally get the first introduction of Dr. Doom, who's aware of the weapon that the Templar Knight is bringing to England, and he is set on getting it for himself because he doesn't know what it is. And I liked the way that they portrayed Doom in this. He's kind of stupid. He's not like in other comics I've read, he's actually like pretty smart, almost as smart as Reed.
Yeah, exactly. He's almost like the equivalent. Yeah, because they always said that.
Especially before Reed becomes the Fantastic Man or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I just listened to, if you guys haven't heard, this is a tangent, but you got to listen to Norm Macdonald's. I guess he did a podcast or something where it was like improv podcast, and someone did like the Fantastic Four by Norm Macdonald, and it's him and 3 other people, and it's him as Reed, and he's like, "Hey guys, guess what? We're gonna be a superhero team now that we got these cool powers, and I came up with names for all of us. So." You, Ben, you're a big ugly thing made of rock, so you're going to be the Thing. And Sue, you're a woman who's invisible, so you're going to be the Invisible Woman. And Johnny, you're a bit of your last name's Storm, and you're a bit of a hothead, so you're going to be, it's like you're a human and you light up like a torch. You're going to be the Human Torch. And me, well, I'm just a fantastic guy, so I'm Mr. Fantastic. And they're like, wait, how come, like, we're the Fantastic Four, like, that's the team name, but how come you don't get called, like, Stretch Man or whatever? Like, he's like, what do you mean? I'm fantastic. Like, I don't understand the problem here, guys. It's one of the funniest fucking things I've heard. So go check that out. There's, like, a YouTube clip of it. Where it's just like the audio of it. It's fucking hilarious. But anyway, yeah, look for Norm Macdonald, Fantastic Four. It's hilarious. Anyway, so that just reminded me of it because he's like, I'm Mr. Fantastic. But yeah, Doom is like not as smart as he is in other comics in this. But he is like a good, like, he's plotting. He can move some chess pieces on this board, right? So he knows that Nick Fury has decoys going out, and he already knows which one is the correct one to follow, and he has a plan to catch up with with Matt Murdock and Natasha before or right as they get the weapon and they do the trade-off. So he's on that, and then also he talks about he's got some people stowed away somewhere, like he's got like an ace up his sleeve, and we're not sure what that is at the beginning, But they talk about him like harnessing the power of earth, air, fire, and water. And so there's like, what could that be? What could that be? I don't know. Also, we got a little hint of where the Fantastic Four are when Matthew Murdock, when he was being a bard and he sang in one of the bars, he was like, "Let me tell you about the four fantastic, or the four that sailed on the Fantastic," or whatever. And he started singing about obviously the Fantastic Four, but it's on a ship named the Fantastic and that. So that's what they've mentioned so far with the Fantastic Four and whatnot. So then we're also seeing the Inquisition or the Inquisitor meeting with James Moore. He's sending his son, who we find out, or if you know anything about, especially with the new Marvel movies, you should kind of know who this is. But it's Quicksilver, and I think there's supposed to be a pretty big reveal when we reveal that the Inquisitor is Magneto. But like he's like, he calls him his son and shit before that. So if you're like, oh, this guy's really quick, and his hair is silver, he's Quicksilver. So he's meeting with James, and James of Scotland is like, wow, you're really fast. How did you get those messages from Spain to here in like days or whatever? It's like, well, I just ran here. And he's like, you're funny. You had a funny sense of humor there, buddy. So it's kind of interesting. And James hates mutants and stuff. And also like he calls them witchbreeds. And that's like one of his things is he hates magic and mystical stuff and witchbreeds. So if he found out that Quicksilver was actually a mutant, he would probably freak the fuck out. So the big thing that happens in this issue is when Virginia Dare goes to meet the Queen, they have like their introductions and everything. And like we said, Nick Fury is aware. I think Stephen Strange told him that there are going to be 3 assassination attempts. One he already had on himself. And then the other one was he was told the Queen's going to get an assassination attempt. And also Virginia Dare is going to have an assassination attempt. So while Virginia's meeting the Queen, one of these vulture men fly out and attack, and they try to grab Virginia Dare. And I thought this was cool. Rogers grabs like a dinner plate, like a platter, and he throws it like his, well, we don't want to reveal it, but yeah, he throws it kind of like Captain America's shield. And he hits he bounces off the wall. I don't know if he actually hits the guy, because the guy starts falling, the vulture already starts falling when he throws it. And it turns out when he falls, he's got these big scratches on his face. And when we cut to the outside of the building, outside of the window, we see that there's this very large white griffin with blue eyes. It's like a weird like eagle cat griffin thing or whatever.
Yeah. Very similar blue eyes to Virginia's.
Yeah, and Virginia is nowhere to be found. She did not fall with the Vulture Man. So very weird things going on, So when we start off on the 3rd issue, that's kind of where we pick up, is we're on the roof on the outside of that building where Virginia is this monster, and Rogers has to capture her with a net along with the help of Stephen Strange. And Stephen's actually able to use magic to get her to turn back into human form. So Virginia's on the roof. By the time Nick Fury gets up there, he's like, what happened? And he's like, oh, she's just resting in this pagan circle I made. It looks like he's about to sacrifice her to his gods or something. But yeah, so then we come back to the X-Men, and we see Angel. He's the main guy we follow in these because he's the one we started off with in the Inquisition. And he's kind of getting to know some people on the team better, specifically John. John Gray is talking to him, and it turns out that he can fly just like Angel can, except the way that he flies is, he's the same powers as Jean Grey. So he can force project down basically and like make himself hover. And so Angel's like, oh, wow, that's super cool. So they kind of have a thing going on, and it does seem a little bit romantic with Angel, you know.
And it seems kind of like there's a love triangle-y thing too, because Scott is...
Well, that's what happens later. But yeah, like Scott is like, what are you doing? Like he gets super jealous, and we think, oh, it's the friendship, that's his friend or whatever. John's his friend or whatever. But it seems like Angel is actually interested in John romantically. So that's kind of like how they introduce that thread line of them being like romantic, I guess, or potentially that might happen. So in the meantime, Matthew Murdock and Natasha are finally getting to where they're supposed to meet the old man with the weapon. And Natasha's like, hey, while you're here, like, go out on the bridge and look real quick because we got to walk this horse across this bridge because we can't ride it on top, I guess. I don't know why. I don't know why they couldn't ride the carriage on top. But she makes him an excuse like, hey, you have to walk the horse across. And then she's like, hey, can you sing while you're doing it? I love your voice. And previously she had been like, can you not ever fucking sing because your voice is terrible? And he's like, wow, you must be in good spirits. And he starts singing, and I'm assuming that she does that so that it'll cover the sounds she's making. But basically, she gets a wine bottle and knocks him on the head. Turns out she is a double agent. She double crosses him, and
she is working for Otto von Doom.
Otto von Doom. She's actually his mistress, which is almost as fucked up as something else he's doing later on. But yes. But yeah, I thought they did her dirty in this. She's like one of the few characters that I'm like, why didn't they make her like she's never like
I thought she might be a triple agent.
I thought so too. And then I was like, no, they just make her evil and like a double crosser. So yeah, they do her dirty by making her like an actual double crosser and not doing like a double cross of a double cross. You know, like I thought she would be like you said, you can't double stamp a triple stamp. Exactly. And then so we also see, because, you know, she's working for Von Doom, we cut to Von Doom, who we find out has some prisoners in some deep, dark tunnels under his castle. Specifically, we have Johnny Storm, who is trapped in a room full of water, so he can't flame on. And it seems like like I would use him as like a power source personally. Like, you're my steam engine, you know, like you get to make steam that powers all the shit. You know, you make the hot water for my castle, basically. And then, but then we see that Von Doom talks to Reed a lot because he gets ideas for weapons, mechanical things, poisons, chemicals, lightning and stuff, working with electricity and whatnot. So Reed is giving him all these crazy ideas because he's holding his family hostage. So he's like, if you don't, you know, give me these scientific discoveries that will help me, you know, take over the world, basically, I will hurt your family. So he has Johnny in that room tied up, or not tied up, but like in a water room. He also has Ben Grimm chained up inside like a very small confined space so he can't get any momentum or anything. We don't see where Sue is right now, Sue Storm, but she is also in his captivity. And so that's just interesting. We see that he has lots of conversations with Reed. He's always like, so what's going on with that frog that I electrocuted? How come it came back to life for a second, but then, you know, stopped or whatever? It's like you know, he's learning science. Reed is basically a science teacher to him. So so after we see that with Von Doom, we cut back to Matthew Murdock, who she hit on the head. He fell off the bridge earlier, and then she met the old man and was like, oh, I'm here from Nick Fury, you know, you can give me the weapon. And right when they kind of do that, Matthew Murdock comes out of nowhere and she springs a trap for the old man, and Matthew's able to actually like knock out a couple guys, but then finds out, oh, they're actually surrounded by a lot of crossbows, so they can't do anything. And he and the old man are taken prisoner for Otto von Doom, and they go back to Latvia, where he's got his castle. So
and they will be in the dungeons.
Yes. So now that the weapon and the old man, the Knight Templar man, and Matthew are in trouble, basically Nick Fury gets together the X-Men and is like, we got to go save them. So Xavier and John Gray find a ship and they lift it up with their minds. So a giant, people are seeing a giant ship in the harbor just float in the air. And then it looks like Scott Summers uses his eyes to be like the power, like a rocket booster behind him or whatever. And they begin to fly. And so they're flying all the way down to Latveria to attack and get back the weapon and Matthew, I guess, potentially. And then at the same time, Doctor Strange has been having visions and flashes that he doesn't know where they're coming from. And it turns out that there is a watcher on the moon who watches everything that happens on Earth. And he's been watching Doctor Strange and everybody, and he's intervening, which they don't usually do. Watchers aren't supposed to intervene. They're just supposed to watch. So he tells he doesn't interview that much, but he tells Strange, hey, there's a temporal issue. That's what the storms are about. Something has happened to your timeline, and like basically your world's going to end. Yeah. Like the universe is going to collapse on itself if you don't fix this. Yeah. And so he lets him know that that's a thing, and and then I think Stephen Strange figures out it has to do with Virginia and something surrounding her and what's going on, because it started 15 years ago, and Virginia is 15 years old. And so, that's like the main thing going on in that issue is that the X-Men are going to attack Latveria and is it Latvia or Latveria? It's Latveria, right? Latveria. I think I said Latvia earlier. So Latveria. And then Steven goes to talk to the Watcher and learns all that information. Then we cut to Victor Von Doom and his castle, and it's actually what's going on underneath the castle that's important. There's big booming sounds coming from the foundations of the castle. And it turns out the Thing has been, I guess, ramming himself enough into the wall over these last years. I don't know how many years.
Slowly but surely, yeah.
Yeah, he's slowly but surely like weaseling enough wiggle room in order to get some momentum back and forth as he cracks the stones around him. And so he's finally sending like big fractures through the earth. So he's working his way into freeing himself. And that is when the X-Men arrive. They arrive as this is going on in the castle of Victor Von Doom. And so Von Doom sends his Vulture men to attack the ship, and they fight with the X-Men. And it's pretty cool. You get like a cut back and forth between the Thing breaking out and the fight going on with the X-Men outside. And then you get this was like possibly the coolest and also most fucked up, disturbing thing in this book, or one of the most. So Natasha has been fucking Von Doom in his bedroom, and as she's hearing the battle happen outside and the big booming from the foundations and the whole castle is shaking, she's like, well, it's time for me to get out of here. Like, I'm going to leave, and might as well steal all this shit in his bedroom before I leave. And as she's doing that, there was like a weird glass cylinder in the middle of the bedroom, and it's just kind of weird and there. And I would be like, what's that? If I was her, but
we didn't ask questions.
Never asked about it before. Just thought, well, Victor Von Doom likes his art or whatever, and he paid how much millions for this piece of shit? Anyway, so as the booming happens, the glass begins to shatter, and when it does, someone knocks the shit out of Natasha, and we get a word balloon that's invisible-ish, and we find out that's where Sue Storm's been kept. Yeah, in Victor Von Doom. In his bedroom.
I like she comes out right away and says, whore.
Yeah, she calls Natasha a whore because she's had to watch her fuck him.
Yeah.
And whoever else he's fucking. I don't know. That's like weird. He like made her a voyeur in his bedroom, which is super creepy and odd. And who knows what else he did. But yeah. It's just...
Get invisible and dancing in your little tube.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very weird. They also make it seem like when she doesn't wear clothes in this, I don't think, because... Like, she doesn't have, like, they always get away with that in the 60s books by being like, well, she's wearing the thing Reed made her, that it's like a special polyester or whatever. Well, this is like the 1600s, so I think she's just naked the whole time or whatever. So, it's very weird that he would keep her in a...
Yeah, she's only invisible in this entire comic. We never see her.
Yeah, we never actually see it. We do see an outline of her, which is why I was like, oh, I think she was naked, because you can see her curvy figure. So... so Matt Murdock's able to actually break out during this as well, and he and the old man jump down and then get down to like the courtyard or whatever, where the old man was like, we need to get to my cart. And it was funny. This was funny. So in the cart, there was a very opulent looking crystal ball kind of thing that Von Doom was like, this has to be the weapon. And he's been trying to figure it out, but he's too stupid to know what's going on. And at the same time, it turns out that the actual weapon was this old stick, like this old staff that was just in the back of the wagon, the cart. And so the old man grabs it, and Matthew was like, oh, well, like, what? Why do you want to go back here? He's like, because I got the weapon, and he pulls it out. And then the old man grabs the weapon this staff, and he hits the ground as they're getting surrounded by a bunch of Von Doom's men, and we find out that is actually I guess it's like if you're a Harry Potter fan, it's a port key basically to the soul of Thor. Like it's the embodiment of Thor. It's the Thor's hammer in like a disguise, basically, is what this staff is.
It's kind of like the umbrella or the cane, or I guess it was kind of like its staff too from the old ones. But yeah, that was fun. So
basically he turns into Thor, and everybody's like, oh shit, like, you know, we got a big thunder pulse, and all of a sudden rain starts pouring and everything, and so now the Fantastic Four have broken out, and Von Doom is losing. Like he thought he was winning, and everything's now lost because Thor is there. The Fantastic Four are out, and they're pissed off, and the X-Men are there. So, you know, he's not going to win. But the best part is Von Doom comes to Thor and is like, you don't know who you're fucking with. I have the weapon. And he pulls out the orb that he's been trying to figure out. And he just kind of like, I don't know how to work it, but I'm going to point it at you. And it is something. It is like some weird scientific instrument or like mystical artifact, because when the lightning hits it, it explodes in his face and he is permanently disfigured. So, and of course, Natasha comes to his aid after she gets woken up and is like, oh my God, your poor face. I don't know if she stays with him after that, but
no, but she has a moment of like, yeah.
Yeah. So, what'd you think of Thor's outfit? And he looks pretty badass.
Thor's outfit looks awesome.
He's got a full like fucking handlebar mustache and a badass beard and Nordic braided locks and everything.
His hammer is very square or rectangular with just that little bit of handle at the end. I loved it.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty great design. That was probably my favorite design of everybody in this, I think, because everybody else was just kind of in clothes.
Yeah,
like there wasn't too much going on. Oh my God, we also forgot to mention, this was kind of a big thing that happened a couple issues back, but so Von Doom had sent, obviously before all this battle and everything, he had sent like trinkets and machines, like cool, like fun toy machines, like wind-up dolls and shit, to the Queen to be like, you know, hope you're having a good day,
thinking
Queen.
of you.
Yeah, thinking of you. P.S. Love Von Doom or whatever, you know, like hugs and kisses or whatever. And turns out one of these machines was like a cyanide dropping machine. Like it looked like it was a music box, and then when you winded it up, it actually had like a cyanide pill that dropped into water or acid or whatever and fumed up and then killed her in her sleep. So she died. So now James, King of Scots, is riding down to take his rightful throne. And in that, he has taken Doctor Strange under arrest, basically. And he's also taken the Inquisitor and his children under arrest. So as of right now, we haven't, I mean, if you already knew, like if you already knew the Marvel Universe, you already figured this out. But they haven't said it so far.
No, the only kind of hint we got is, we didn't mention this either, but the Inquisitor is talking with some other guy that came to visit him, and the guy ended up being an assassin, and he came at him with like a knife that was on a little bit of a chain, and then all of a sudden the knife kind of is out in the middle of the air, and then
it's hovering,
and then it rotates towards the assassin. So
yeah, so we're like, oh, okay, we know who this is. Yeah. I guess this is Magneto.
Yeah,
the Inquisitor is the Magneto, and he is, you know, always trying to build the Brotherhood army, right? Like he's trying to get mutants that can pass.
I love that. Yeah, they like he said something like the Inquisition was like useful for such
yesterday,
but we are forming the Brotherhood. You said the little Easter eggs, things that
things like that. They would always throw words like the Shield or Brotherhood or things in that were like, oh, this is calling back to the actual comics. So the funny thing is, we were talking about, they have Magneto or the Inquisitor tied to a stake along with his two children, who is Wanda and Peter Maximoff, and they talk about basically like, we're burning you because you're a Jew. We don't like Jews, and as much as you say, you know, as long as you've been a Christian in quotation marks, like whoever the Catholic guy that saved you from your Jew ghetto or whatever, you know, you can't wash that off. Basically, you are a Jew forever. So not only are you like a shitty person or whatever, because he doesn't know that he's a mutant yet.
Yeah.
He just knows you're a Jew, and that's good enough for me to burn you. So he's trying to burn him, and Magneto's like, whoa, before you go, just please, I have some papers and some things that people gave me in my desk, and if you could please send those on their way, they're very important. And he's like, oh, really important, huh? Well, why don't we go get those and we'll burn them with you? How do you like that? And that's actually what Magneto was hoping would happen, because when they throw the items on the fire, we see that one of them is a helmet, and it's the Magneto helmet. So
it's the Magneto helmet.
And of course, it's the weird thing we were talking about. We thought they bound people with ropes on the sticks that they're, or the pylons that they're holding them onto on the fire, but they bound them in metal chains, which was very cool for this scene, because Magneto gets his helmet on and he starts to rise up and the chains break apart, and he's like you will fucking die. And so he basically murders everybody with their own swords and stuff. It's pretty awesome. And that was probably one of my favorite scenes in this book, when he murders everybody in that town square. So then we cut to the X-Men, and we find out that, they're on their way home with the ship and everything, and now they're actually like really sailing because they don't need to fly there in a certain amount of time. And we find out that John Grey is actually Jean Grey, and they were like keeping her a secret because, women back in the day, I'm sure, was not a good thing to be, and especially if you're a mutant and all that stuff. So Charles kind of just called her John and made her like hide that she was a woman, and or a girl. And so she, having spent so much power, having the ship being held up and everything, she actually dies. And we find out that Cyclops knew that she was Jean Grey the whole time, and a girl, and they had a relationship. And that's why he was so like, what are you doing around John, huh? Like, why do you like John so much? Because he thought that Angel knew that John was Jean, that John was a girl. And so that, it turns out he did not know that, and Angel just was like, oh, I didn't realize, and I apologize that there was any confusion, but I was in love with John. I was a big fan of John. So that's kind of like a cool reveal later on. So we also get Strange being put to death because he is a magician or whatever. He gets his head cut off. But the best thing about this is, and this is one of my favorite things about this book as well, Clea, his wife, finds his head on a pike that they stick his head on to like warn people against magic, and she takes it off and it's talking to her. It's like, hey, thanks for getting my head. We need to go to the New World to solve the rift in time issue that's going to ruin the whole world. So we're going to America. So now we have three parties going to America. We have the X-Men, who are on the run from James, the King of Scotland, who's on this, massacre of witch breeds and magicians and shit. We have Virginia Dare and Rajas, who are going back to the colony. And then we also have, and wait, is Clea on the same ship as her?
As Strange.
Strange.
Or I'm sorry, no, because Strange is dead. My apologies. No.
Well, Clea's Strange, and Strange's head are on a ship with Virginia Dare.
Yes.
Okay. The third ship that's going is from James, who has sent Peter Parker, who now works for him, and Banner, who is his right-hand man. Yeah. They send them to the New World in order to capture, I guess, Doctor Strange and the witch breeds and all them, like all of them together. So
I like that they put Doctor Strange's head in a barrel of brandy to preserve
They're
it.
Like, we don't know if we should have smoked it or salted it, but we figured brandy would be the best.
It's going to take like 2 months to get over there anyway. So
yeah, when they pull it out, it's all like alcohol-y and bloated and shit. It's so gross looking. But yeah, they come to the New World, and basically we find out that the big reveal that we all knew because we understand how to read Rajas, but basically it is revealed that, to Clea specifically, that she says something to Rajas like, man, I just wish you could tell me what's going on. And he's like, well, maybe I can, or whatever. And
just starts talking perfect.
Yeah, perfect English. Modern English, or 50s English, or I guess it was modern because it was supposed to be like the 2000s. So 2000s English to, a 1600s English person, which would be funny. No accent, or just American accent that doesn't exist yet, so it'd be totally foreign sounding. But yeah, he says like full sentence. He says, "Well, if you put it like that, Miss Strange, I guess she's not." Like so he just reveals what's going on, and then we get what actually happened. So the time rift. This is what happened with the time rift. Captain America, he fought in World War II. He did his thing. He came back after being frozen. He fought for the good guys, the good old U.S. of A. And then eventually the U.S. of A became the Nazi U.S. Not Nazi, I guess fascist U.S. of A or whatever, totalitarian U.S. of A. Because they capture, we see these old versions of Daredevil and Spider-Man in handcuffs, but like
super old.
Giant super, they're super old, but like the handcuffs are like, technology enforced or
so
whatever.
They
like
obviously break out.
Yeah. And then we see there's a president for life, it says, and Captain America was like, I was at odds with this whole president for life thing. So because I wasn't playing ball, they just sent me back in the thing. And I guess the thing that they sent him back in was it looks like the orb that Von Doom had, but basically they didn't know what they were doing. It seemed like they were just like, if we do this thing, it'll put you somewhere else. So we just sent you somewhere else. And what they did was they sent Steve Rogers into another parallel universe or maybe it caused a parallel universe, a rift in time. When he comes back, it's 16, not 02, but it's 16 whatever, or it'd be 15 something.
Yeah.
And he appears and he's Steve Rogers. He's like, what the hell? And the Native Americans just kind of take him. He's in America, and he just helps out the Roanoke colony so much that they survived, which they shouldn't have. So that's where the time disruption starts, is from him coming there. And then he finds Virginia Dare, and she is a mutant. But what the problem is that I think she was originally supposed to be a mutant in this, but his time travel and the rift caused all the other mutants and magical things to happen before their time.
Yeah.
So that is why all these Marvel heroes are starting to appear in 1602 rather than in the 60s, because this rift in time sped up that whole process, I guess. So that was like the main thing. And basically they have to figure out how to go back. Like Virginia Dare tells the story of the day she found Rogers or whatever, Rogers, whatever you call him. And there was like a little infinity symbol that's floating in the air that she goes next to, and when she touched it, it went boom, and then she became like a deer. That's the first time she ever transformed. And then so I'm assuming that's how she got her powers, is from that. And then that's when Steve Rogers came back, right? That's what I'm understanding. Is that the same time?
That's the exact same time. Yeah.
Okay, so basically that little thing, the little infinity symbol, is still floating in the middle of somewhere in the woods, basically, and no one else has touched it.
No one else touched it.
If you were like back then and you were, what the fuck is this thing? Like, yeah, you're gonna touch that thing for sure. So basically, there's some like back and forth with Magneto's guys who also are following into the New World and stuff, but basically they all team up and get like Fury is on board with them as well, and they need to get Rogers back to that area and basically push him into that little symbol.
Yeah.
And Rogers is like, no, I don't want to do it, because he doesn't want to go back to his shitty time period.
Yeah, basically he's like, everybody I knew and love is, and I thought Fist felt like a second chance, like with Virginia, he was basically like, took one look at this white girl and I was like, I must protect her.
Yes. And not only that, but like he's like, I could start a new America, like a better America. I could, he knows what his America becomes, so he could change that. Is his point of view, but he doesn't know that.
That's true. One thing they say about this is that he doesn't age like at all.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting, because usually Cap ages, but he just ages like
slower,
crazy slow. But yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. Like, he just doesn't age at all.
So the big finale of this issue happens, or this whole story happens, when Nick Fury goes up to Steve Rogers like, no, you have to do this or else the whole universe is going to collapse on itself. And Rogers is like, I don't want to.
Cap is like, no.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to. And then Fury goes, look, I promise you we'll figure a different way out Like we'll figure something out. You don't have to go back. And he's like, well, I don't know if I could trust you. And Nick Fury's like, well, you knew a Nick Fury back in the day, right? Like in your other time.
You do say you guys were friends, and so if there's a Nick Fury there, then you know that like I'm Nick Fury, and like that we got to be part of the same person, basically.
Yeah, like that Nick Fury is me, you know. So you could trust me. And he's like, okay.
And Cap's like, okay, yeah.
So he goes down off the like little ledge where he was at, and goes next to, I guess, to shake his hand or something, like deal. Yeah. And Nick Fury takes a big ass rock and had it behind his back, and then smacks Steve Rogers on the head and knocks him out. Which I was like, can a rock knock Captain America out? But apparently it can. But then he was like, then Nick Fury goes, I'm not that Nick Fury. like I'm not that guy you knew. And so yeah, then Nick Fury basically sacrifices himself at the end and lifts Steve Rogers' body into the infinity sign floating in the air and sends him back along with himself, I guess, in time. Now, you could do like a sequel to this where they both go back to that time period and fuck shit up. Like, Nick Fury, overthrows the government there and sets things back. That'd be a cool spinoff. Marvel 2202. 2202. I don't know. So whatever the future is of that. So, yeah. But that's pretty much the end of it. Like, they wrap up some stuff where we find out that the Watchers are mad at the head Watchers are mad at the main Watcher for interfering. But they say, don't do that again.
Yeah.
But they also are like, you know what? We're going to give you that world, that 1602 universe. We're going to give you that as like a gem. It was kind of like Men in Black.
Yeah.
Where they had the little like galaxies in a marble or whatever. Yeah. It was kind of like that. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, so they give the Watcher, they're like, well, we're mad at you, but also here's a gift of that universe. So that actually lets there be some more sequels that happen in the Marvel universe. You said you read a couple of those, right? Like the Spider-Man one?
Yeah, the Spider-Man one too. Because that's one thing we'll say in this is that Peter Parker, as we're getting through this, is like they tease several times, like Peter is like in a bar waiting for Nick Fury and he sees a spider on the table and he's like, oh, look at the little spider.
Yeah.
And then then Nick Fury's like, oh, get out, and like almost squishes the spider and he's like, oh.
Yeah, and then in Doctor Strange's room, there's a spider coming down and they're like, oh, don't get near that thing. It's poisonous. So you're kind of, they're teasing the whole time, like, when is he going to get bit? Because as of right now, he's just a normal kid.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of this, I guess the temporal shift when Steve Rogers went back in time, or back to his time, that caused a spider to get irradiated or whatever, and that bites him. And he's like, ow! And they're like, oh, don't worry, we'll bandage that up. You'll be fine. So we find out, that they're leading to that. So that's how the sequel happens. And I think there's another one too. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Fantastic Four.
Oh, nice.
I think it's a Fantastic Four one, and there is a Spider-Man one. So I believe I read the Spider-Man one, maybe, or I can't remember which one it was, but I enjoyed them. I thought they were fun. If you like this universe of the kind of old-timey England, stuff or whatever, and seeing the little clever nods to the actual Marvel universe, it's a fun universe. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's like the main thing that happens, the storyline of this. And yeah, so John, what would you give it? What did you think of it?
I liked it a lot. I will say too, so like Magneto also like agrees to like he's kind of came around a little bit and was like, okay, like,
well, it's what he always does in X-Men. He's like, you know what, Charles, I guess we'll work together for now.
Yeah. So it was still fun, and I love the again, like the way that they did the outfits. So like they're like, kind of obviously timely, but then they kind of do similar colors and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so like when Magneto comes around to being Magneto, he has like another tunic on, like he has the Inquisitor, but this tunic is purple and red.
Of course.
So it's fun. I was a little sad we didn't actually get anything from Wanda. I was hoping we would get a little.
Yeah, she doesn't really do anything in this at all. It's all like, at least you get to see Quicksilver run a little bit.
Yeah, he runs a little bit. And I liked, like I said, all the outfits when they had outfits on were really fun. The X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and obviously Doctor Strange. He's already wearing that. His outfit is already kind of clothing from that area.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I like the back and forth between Steven and Nick Fury because they don't fucking trust each other at all. And every time like Fury is like, no, we need to do this like the most either rational way or the most like secretive spy way, and Strange is like, I can just
astral project over there.
Yeah, we can just it's really easy. Like, don't even worry about it. So that's fun. And then, like I said, I thought the there was like a little brief glimpse of the Hulk at the end too. That was kind of neat, and I was like, oh man, I wish that would have been interesting to throw in the mix. Him actually becoming the Hulk.
Banner doesn't become the Hulk until after the irradiate, kind of like Spider-Man.
Yeah,
he's just a character that doesn't do anything until the end when they show him running through the woods as Hulk. So,
but yeah, overall I liked it. Again, it's really solid writing. I think it's Neil Gaiman, so
yeah,
the writing's gonna be good. The art is wonderful in this. It like very
Andy Kubert's got a very cool style.
Yeah, it's almost like not like, I don't know how to describe it. It's not like dots, but like it's like really tiny strokes of things. It looks like.
Well, to me, it looks like
clothing.
Pencils.
Yes.
Like it's almost like they don't ink it or something. I don't know. Like it's very soft. Like, I don't know how to say it. The line is soft and then the coloring goes over it. So everybody's got kind of a soft features and stuff. Whereas, normally if you have ink, you're getting hard lines or like dark lines that are outlining everything and shadows. There's not a lot of shadows in this. It's almost like he inked over the pencils, and that's what you get, or not inked, you colored over the pencils, and that's what it is. So it's a very interesting style. We were saying earlier before this that it's the same artist team that did Wolverine Origin. So if you liked that art, you probably like this art as well.
Definitely.
So what would you give it, John?
I would say overall, I've been stuck on this too because I'm going in with my first gut. I'm going to give it an 8. It was a really solid story. Never was bored. Like, I was definitely like entertained and like, oh, what's going on here? Like, where is this going? How are these going to intertwine? So yeah, it was fun.
Cool. I'm going to give this one. Once again, I liked it a lot, but it's. There were things that I didn't like, but there were like small things. It was like a little like, I don't know about that. Just like The Rock with Steve Rogers. Yeah. Like, can Captain America get knocked out by a rock? So things like that, I was kind of like, all right. But I'm going to give it an 8 too. I like the art. I think the writing is perfect and fine as far as like the story and everything. I like how complex the story is. And it really like sucks you into it. Like, what's going to happen here? Like, I also like that we read it fairly recently, like a year or two ago. And I still was like, wait, what is the twist on all of this stuff? Like, I don't remember everything. There was still some stuff that was fresh, even though we had recently read it and like a year ago or whatever, or 2 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't remember that Strange died, but then like he's still like he's talking astrally through his head. I was like, that's fun. There were a lot of little things that I did not remember. So
yeah, the stuff like that. I remembered a lot of the overarching plots or whatever, but then like the small stuff. Also, Thor is fucking awesome in this. That's true too. Yes. So there's a lot of good things in this that when they happen, you're like, fuck yeah. So. So I'm going to give it an 8. You're going to give it an 8. What are we reading next week, John?
Next week, in honor of the recently passed Neil Adams.
Neil Adams, R.I.P.
Yes. We're going to check out a team-up Green Lantern and Green Arrow, or is it Green Arrow, Green Lantern?
It's Green Lantern, Green Arrow.
Okay, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. And I like the way he described this to me, so I'm gonna say it. He was like, all right, so they were both titles are going at the same time, and one's not doing so hot. We won't say which one wasn't doing so hot. They're like, well, now it's
Green Arrow.
Green Arrow. So now, like, we're gonna do a team up, and we'll see how that goes. And from what Matt was saying, he said there's a lot of good banter and like back and forth between them because they're not quite.
They're politically unaligned.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
So it sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. I already love Green Lantern. I don't know. I know enough about. I know a little bit about Green Arrow. He's been in a couple small things. I always play as him in some video games because he's always a fun character. I like archers.
Injustice or whatever.
Yeah, stuff like that. My wife hates it because I'm all the way across the other side.
You're a cheater. You fucking shoot your arrows all
That's what he got arrows. What are you supposed to do?
That's true. Imagine him in a fight, against Darkseid or whatever.
That's true.
Boxing glove arrow. But yeah, so we're going to read that, and this has got Neil Adams on the art, and it's one of his most iconic, well-known story arcs. So it's just the first, I guess it's called Volume 1 of the Green Lantern, Green Arrow series, and it's 1 through 7, issues 1 through 7 of that. So I don't know if those were actually, I think they're actually issues like of Green Lantern that are
I think it said like number whatever.
Yeah, it's like issue 247 and whatever. So, so that's what we're going to read next week. And if you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email us at planestrains&comicbooks, all one word, at gmail.com.
Don't forget about our Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube channel for exclusive content, as well as our Patreon. We have a Patreon.
You have a new Patreon, and we're uploading all the Hellblazers up there. We started a thing with polls. So if you are on the Patreon under our blue and any of the tiers, actually, any tier as far as membership under there, you can vote on polls and tell us what you want us to read. So what we'll do is every month for our patrons, we will have a poll that will say, 4 titles or however many titles. You guys can throw out suggestions too if you want.
Yep.
And we will throw those in there, and then you guys can vote on what you want us to do. And we'll do one of those a month. So every month, one of those books will be one of the books we do.
Viewer's choice once a month.
Exactly.
Or listener's choice, I should say.
Same thing. Yeah, same thing.
They
can watch on YouTube.
You can watch some of the static videos on YouTube.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that, you can support us and go on there and become a member at Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word. So with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.